Co, the facilitator of today's webinar. This is a 12-part series that's sponsored by WorkLife Partnership on innovative work incentive practices. We are highlighting non-traditional methods of supporting and incentivizing employees, and we are thrilled that all of you joined us today. So today's webinar is focused on the Red Tab Foundation and Levi Strauss Company and how their efforts to promote savings among their employees have resulted in a more empowered workforce. So today we're going to learn about Red Tab, how it's associated with Levi Strauss Company, what and why they decided to start promoting savings, as well as the challenges that they've experienced and words of advice for those of you who might be interested in replicating this type of program. So a few logistics before we start today's presentation. All of the participants on today's webinar are on mute. That is to help us eliminate background noise so that we can hear our presenters clearly. If you have questions, which we definitely encourage, please go ahead and post them in the chat box. We will be monitoring the questions and we will be asking them to the presenter on your behalf when she is done providing an overview of this program. So again, we want you to ask questions. Just go ahead and put them in the chat box throughout the webinar. At the end of the webinar, we are asking everyone to complete a 1-minute survey. It's very, very quick, but it helps us get a better sense of kind of if this was pertinent to the work that you do and how you might use some of these ideas in the future. So take a minute to fill out that survey. One randomly selected respondent will receive a $15 Amazon card. So we want to hear from you. So today I'm very, very excited to introduce Jenny Calvert-Rodriguez, who is the Global Programs Manager at the Red Tab Foundation, which is a nonprofit that assists the Levi Strauss Company employees and their retirees with financial emergencies, as well as helping them to build a strong financial future. Jenny is a former teacher who has dedicated her life and her work to helping individuals find the resources and developing the skills to create a better life for themselves. Prior to joining the Red Tab Foundation, Jenny received her master's degree in Peace and Justice Studies at the University of San Diego. She's a lifelong Californian, USC Trojan, and a lover of all things avocado, which I have to admit I appreciate because I spend a lot of time hiking, and my trail name is actually guacamole because I usually make guacamole in the first night of my backpacking trip. So Jenny, I love that you love avocados, and I know you're super busy, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you so much, Summer, and I'm glad to know I have a fellow avocado lover in the room.
They're great.
Yes, it's very portable for backpacking, especially.
Exactly.
So I'm super excited to talk with you guys today about the Red Tab Foundation and our recent work developing a match savings program called Red Tab Savers. So I'll start just by giving you an overview of the foundation itself and the work that we do. I'm lucky enough to roll up into the community that is Levi Strauss Company, and I will refer to it often as LS & Co during this call, so please forgive my acronym, but that's what I mean is Levi Strauss Company. And what's so wonderful about working at Levi Strauss Co is that our 4 values of empathy, originality, integrity, and courage are really woven into everything that we do. And that sort of values-based organization comes directly from the founder, Levi Strauss himself, who supported an organization here in San Francisco, a children's home that we actually still support to this day as a company. And one of the ways that this unique culture really manifests itself is that we have 2 different foundations at Levi Strauss Co. So the Levi Strauss Foundation is your typical corporate philanthropic arm, and they do large-scale grants to other organizations that share our values and particularly protect marginalized communities. The Red Tab Foundation is actually a separate 501c3, but our primary client base are employees and retirees of the company. So really our work is driven by the core value of empathy, and we exist to serve our colleagues who are in need. So the Red Tab Foundation was founded in 1981 by a retiring marketing executive named Jerry O'Shea. And Jerry was a lifelong Levi Strauss Co employee. He actually started as a stock boy here in San Francisco in our Valencia Street factory and worked his way up the corporate ladder to retire as a VP. So when he retired, he was really cognizant of the idea that many of the people who built our product, particularly our large manufacturing workforce in the United States, did not have a financial safety net to fall back on. And so he founded the Red Tab Foundation with the idea that all employees and retirees at this company need to have some sort of safety net there when they face financial emergencies. So we're in our 36th year now, and the three pillars of our work really are emergency assistance and elder care needs, scholarships, and then financial education and asset building work. So Red Tab Savers fits into that latter category of asset building work, and we really view it as the next iteration of how the Red Tab Foundation can help our clientele. We also view ourselves as experts on employee needs because we have the sort of frontline interaction with our retail employees, with our distribution center employees, and with our retirees who, in a way that many other parts of the company don't. And so we also view ourselves as advocates for the needs of those workers and that workforce within the company in order to ensure that the policies of the company are serving the well-being of our workforce. So Red Tab Savers really came from the idea that prevention of financial emergencies is better than just addressing it after the fact. And this really was an outgrowth of several of the key lessons that we learned from an earlier program that was a college match program that encouraged our distribution center employees, which mostly were single mothers, to set aside funds for their college education. So out of that program, we wanted to take an approach that was scalable, that was appealing to particularly our growing retail workforce who tend to be between 18 and 25 and are truly, they are global, but especially in our US population, relatively high turnover, but very, very engaged. And so we wanted to find a solution for them that would incentivize the type of behavior that we wanted to teach, which was saving in the short term in order to build your own financial safety net. But we also wanted to make sure that we, with our small staff of 3 people, could manage this program even as it scaled and deepened the impact of it. We also came to this approach after many years of emergency assistance because we began to notice that, particularly with our retail and distribution center employees, the things that they were asking for help with were not necessarily major emergencies like fires or floods, but they needed help with things that were preventable or handled with just a little bit of their own savings. So that was the impact that we began to go after. It closely aligns with the second part of our mission, which is to help people create their own safety net. So once we decided that that was the space we wanted to explore, we began to look at potential partners. As I mentioned, we're only a staff of 3 people. We're very lean. And so we needed to find a partner who had strengths and knowledge and expertise that we didn't necessarily have. So we came across EARN, who is a local organization that has been doing asset building work in the Bay Area for a very long time. And they were also looking at a way to scale that kind of work that they had been doing for many years on an individual person-on-person counseling basis. So we were their first employer-related partnership and went through really extensive development and program design cycles together. And I think we're going on about 4 years of that partnership. So as it stands now, we're currently at the end of our 3rd pilot phase. And in about 2 weeks, our board of directors will be making the decision about whether we take that program national or keep it small scale. And it's looking very promising that we're going to roll it out to all of our retail and distribution center employees in the United States. So for a little bit more detail about how the program works, in the current form, the duration of the program is 6 months, and participants start with a quick enrollment process that they can do via their cell phone or any desktop computer. They visit a website, they complete a quick questionnaire, and then they enter their online banking credentials and link their savings account to our platform. So So the platform that EARN has developed reads the balance of the savings account, and it monitors how much it grows month over month. So for the next 6 months, participants aim to grow their account balance by a net amount each month up to a maximum of $40 that will be matched. So over the course of that 6 months, if they put in $40, the Red Tab Foundation will match their $40 to double their savings. And if they do all 6 months in a row, they get a consistency bonus of $20 as well. So at the end of the 6-month period, they will have a balance of about $500 in their savings account that can serve as an emergency safety net cushion. Now, $500 might not sound like a lot, but we know that about 47% of Americans do not have enough savings to cover a $400 emergency without going into debt. We also know that a savings cushion of about $250 to $750 makes the difference between missed utility payments, possible evictions, and many other of the crises that the Red Tab Foundation has to step in to help after the fact. And so by incentivizing this behavior of creating their own savings, we're not only giving them a nice safety net to start with, but we're really instilling those positive habits that we think they will continue to practice throughout the rest of their life, even after they leave Levi Strauss Co. Our partnership with EARN really has been a boon to us. They handle the technological platform, which is great because we are not a tech company over here at Red Tab. And they also handle the administrative details of dispersing matches, collecting survey data, and reporting back out to us what they find. Where we add value from the Red Tab Foundation perspective is, of course, the funding to fund the matches and pay for the administration. But we also handle the marketing and enrollment process because we know our clientele and we can work within our own company pipelines of communication in order to market this program and leverage those relationships to drive participation. The intended impact of the program, as I mentioned before, is to provide employees with an incentive to build a habit of savings and to also give them a sense of confidence about their control over their financial situation. So we start with a pre-survey, and after the program is over, do an exit survey, and we really have seen that this works. We know that people's perceptions of themselves as a saver, a sporadic saver, or regular saver improves over the duration of the 6-month program. And that confidence really can go a long way in ensuring or reassuring people that they can participate in other forms of financial wellness that are offered by the company, like the 401k or retirement counseling and other things that are not Red Tab owned, but we see it as a pipeline into those types of programs that might be slightly intimidating. We have a really specific example of that in a Red Tab saver named Michael. Michael was an architecture student and was working as a Levi's retail employee in Las Vegas at the same time that he was going to school. So he was managing his calendar and trying to pay for his school supplies, and joined the Red Tab Savers program as a way to try to create a little cushion for himself to pay for emergency school needs. So he wasn't involved in the 401k program, didn't really participate in any of the financial wellness initiatives at Levi Strauss Co. itself, but he knew Red Tab Savers as a brand, and he enrolled with us because it seemed almost too good to be true. It was a really quick sign up. He didn't have to do anything. There was no penalty if he couldn't make a month of savings. And at the end of that 6 months, he had that $500. And so he found that to be very helpful to help him manage his expenses, but he also then started thinking about longer term how he could manage his money better and how he might be able to take advantage of the other programs like the 401k that the company was offering. It's also really encouraging to see that we are getting enrollment from people that we've helped with emergency assistance in the past. They've gotten back on their feet with the help of an emergency grant, and now they're striving to create their own financial cushion for unexpected expenses that are inevitably going to arise. So we see the impact here two-pronged. It's not only helping what we like to think of as striving savers, who are people who are really trying to improve their financial situation without a lot of experience or knowledge of how to do so. And it also is helping those people who are just getting back on their feet after an emergency and are really trying to prevent that from happening the next time. So we're excited to see that the program is working, and we really think that it has the ability to have a strong ROI in terms of how we can prevent emergencies from happening before they get to the point of an eviction or a utility disconnection, where Red Tab would step in an interventionist sort of emergency capacity. I mentioned before that we've had a really great experience partnering with EARN, but there have been some challenges, mostly just that we're first movers in this space. EARN was developing their platform around the same time that we were interested in utilizing it, and so there have been many iterations of what the program design looks like, what the actual technology platform is, and I think the most important thing that we've learned from that is that we truly are a partnership, and we're learning from each other's experiences, and it's not a vendor relationship. And so the more you can go into it with a partnership mindset, I think the more advantageous that is for everyone involved. We've also been really lucky working with EARN in that we're able to identify our respective strengths. So I mentioned before, we are not a technology company here at Red Tab, and so EARN was able to handle that for us. But we do have a lot of strengths in our marketing capacity and the trusted brand that we have with our employees, and the communication channels that we have to do outreach directly, especially to our field employees out in retail and distribution, is pretty unique and would be difficult to get at those populations from an external organization. And so we're really able to leverage our relationships and our brand with our employees in order to make sure that we are getting this program out and that it's really being utilized. One of the things we hear a lot, though, when we're out doing store visits and talking to people about this program is, what's the catch? It almost seems too good to be true. It's hard for employees to understand why the Red Tab Foundation would just be giving them match money for doing nothing other than saving their own money. And so then we really have a good teaching moment about how important it is to really be preparing yourself for whatever the financial emergencies are that may arise in your life, and how instilling those habits really early on can make all of your financial situations in your lifetime a lot easier. So we enjoy having those conversations about what's the catch, and then reassuring them that there really isn't a catch at all. We're really just trying to be there to help. So I think some of the most important learnings that we had that I would recommend if other companies are interested in doing this is really to make sure that you first understand your audience and what their needs are, and then try to understand how they would use a tool like this. Some of the challenges specifically that we've had is trying to design a program both for our retail employees and for our distribution center employees, because geographically, but especially demographically, they access information very differently. So our retail employees are almost completely on their mobile phones. They never have a desktop computer at home. Getting access to a paper copy of tax documents or any other income proof that we need is a little bit difficult for them. Whereas the distribution center employees really kind of need to sit down with somebody and work through the application. They may not use online banking. They may belong to a credit union that doesn't have online banking. And so it's important to get that information up front and to sit down and ask people what they need and how best to deliver that to them. It's really easy to follow whatever the trends in the industry are and operate on the assumptions about those populations, but you'll find that usage is low unless you're really meeting your clients where they are. This also includes your field partners. So in our case, that means our district managers and store managers at retail. It means our distribution center managers and HR partners who sit in our distribution centers. And really making sure that they're well educated and well equipped to answer questions from employees. We found that out through sort of a long process. We used to kind of take the tack, just direct them to the 800 number. We can answer any questions from them here at headquarters. But we found that that was more of an obstacle than if they were already sitting down and talking to their manager about something. But if the manager can answer the questions, then it made the whole process a lot easier. So that buy-in from field partners and really demonstrating to them the value, not only to employees, but also to the business, because we know that employees who are more financially secure are also more productive and happier and more engaged at work. So there is a business case for this, and if you can make that business case to your internal stakeholders, especially field partners, it really helps move the initiative along, even though from a Red Tab perspective, we're just doing this because it's the right thing to do for our employees, and we see that there's a need out there that is unmet. I also mentioned this prior, but it's really important to build a partnership with an organization that has complementary strengths to your organization. If you have a lot of in-house capacity to do certain things, then keep that in-house and really make it your own. But if there are things that are going to take a heroic effort to execute, outsource that to your partner or see if you can find a third party vendor that might be able to serve that need as well. But it's also delivered via the platform. And
hey,
really,
this is Summer. I just wanted to hop in real quick. Sorry to interrupt, but it sounds like we were having some issues where a couple of the participants couldn't hear you. So I was wondering maybe you could just back up by a minute and kind of repeat what you were just sharing about EARN and their WorkLife program.
Sure.
Sorry, asking.
So I was just mentioning that although we have a custom program with EARN that they have branded as Red Hat Savers and we've designed our own match, they also have an out-of-the-box program that any organization can use at a very low cost. And they've seen that this works. They currently have over 70,000 members on that platform. And it's a 2-for-1 match, so it's slightly less rich of a match. But the financial coaching and the educational pieces on it are really valuable. And Megan from EARN is actually on the call now, and so I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to anybody here if they're interested in either of those programs. The team over at EARN is really great, and so I would highly recommend reaching out if you're at all interested in anything like this. So with that, I will wrap up and open up for Q&A. Hopefully I can answer any of the questions that you guys have about Red Hat Savers or any of the other programs that Red Hat Foundation has in place.
Hey, Jenny, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information. And I have to say that I think you referenced in the beginning that initial savings of $500 might not sound a lot, but I think it sounds like a great, a lot of money. So it's such a great program that you all are doing. We did have a question come in, and I know Megan Wong from EARN is on, and she responded to it as well, but I wanted to see if you wanted to expand on it at all. There's a question about if you had said earlier 45% of Americans don't have enough savings to handle a $400 emergency. And then the question was, is $400 the average cost per emergency? I think Megan responded and said, according to the latest study by the Federal Reserve, 47% of Americans could not handle a $400 emergency without selling something or going into debt, which is a really scary statistic. I'm wondering if there's anything that you just wanted to expand on that. I wanted to give you the opportunity to say some more.
Yeah, I think we see, particularly with our retail and distribution employees, that it really is relatively small-scale losses in income or income volatility that leads to a lot of the emergencies that we handle from an emergency assistance perspective. So that is about our average of an emergency. That might be a thing like a car breakdown, or a child gets sick and you have to take unpaid leave for a week to stay home with that child, or you have a car accident and you break your ankle and the ER bill is $500. Many of these employees who are often working part-time as students or have other responsibilities that they need to take care of, they just don't have that cushion in order to take care of that emergency. And so this very closely does line up with what we see from the types of emergencies, which are things that seem relatively simple: utility bills, catching up on rent. But sometimes things have to give in situations where you're trying to make ends meet, and if you can just save a little bit at a time, it sometimes feels impossible, but we've seen that once savers feel empowered and they feel like, hey, I can set aside that $10 a month, or I can set aside that $20 a month, all of a sudden they have that $400, and when their car breaks, fix it without having to call on Red Tab or take out a high-interest loan or borrow from friends and family. So we do see that small amount really does make a difference.
That's great. I can imagine, actually, that it would make quite a big difference. I also wanted to follow up with you. I know earlier that you referenced that you're kind of finishing up the third pilot phase of this savings program, and that you're going to talk with the board next week around whether or not to take it national. I'm wondering if you can share if there's a business case or hard numbers that you need to share with the board in order to get them behind the idea of taking this national.
I think the impact data is pretty compelling in that we see that spending habits improve, savings habits improve, people report that they are more prepared for an emergency, and we also have access to EARN's data, which says that about 83% of people continue to save after the program is over. So I think the data is really there. I think for the board, what they're trying to figure out is, how does this program work in the ecosystem of larger financial wellness efforts that the company has going on? And does it provide a unique value to be worth our investment? And we have most of the board all the way there to say yes, so I'm very encouraged about that. But I think what's really unique about this is that it targets a very specific audience of our hourly wage workers. And most of the other programs at the company are sort of universal for every employee. And so I think that's where, as Red Tab Foundation, we have a really unique opportunity, because we can focus on our client base, which tends to be hourly wage workers. And so this program is designed specifically for them. It's a very low barrier to entry in terms of how much money they have to contribute and how long they have to be in the program, which is, the short term is very appealing for younger workers who tend to not be with the company as long as a home office employee would be. And so I think we're there, and the board is really just thinking about how do we make this scale, and what does that look like at scale in terms of our investment.
That's great. I will keep my fingers crossed for you that you have a good conversation next week that leads to a positive outcome of moving forward nationally. It actually makes me wonder, thinking about how the program is built for those hourly wage workers, do you think that any company that has hourly wage workers could implement this type of program, or do you think it's unique to the Levi Strauss & Company employees?
No, I think it's very universal. And we've actually had quite a few conversations with other employers who were thinking about a program with EARN, who thought that it fit their workforce very well. So I think, the food industry, anyone who works in retail, I would be really excited to see that type of program within a large-scale employer like Home Depot or Target or Walmart, because the impact that it could have on that large of a workforce could be really impressive. So I think it's very translatable, and like I mentioned, our distribution center and our retail workforces are very different. Distribution tends to be much older and longer tenured. Retail tends to be younger and higher turnover, but they both find this program to be very valuable for their personal well-being and their financial well-being. So I think it translates across any kind of hourly workers or even salaried workers. We know that the savings crisis is not only a low and middle income problem. It exists at all levels of income, and it really is just about forming the habit and building that muscle of how to put some money aside every paycheck in order to protect yourself.
That's great. That totally makes sense. The last question that we had is just, and you might have said this earlier, but is there a per person cap placed on an annual basis in terms of the match? Right
now we are thinking about our program design as a person participates in this one time. It builds the habit, they get that reward, and then hopefully they keep saving afterwards. And so the annual cap would be just that one-time program participation and $260 in match rewards. Got it.
Great. Jenny, I just want to again thank you for joining us today. As I said earlier, I know that you're super busy, and especially as part of a 3-person organization, you're wearing a lot of hats and you have a lot going on. So we really do appreciate you taking the time to join us today and to share all this information with us. And I'm sure it inspired some of our participants to think about how they could start offering a similar program in their companies. So again, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
You got it. For those of you still with us, I want to just encourage you to go ahead and complete the 1-minute survey. As I said earlier, one survey respondent will receive a $15 gift card from Amazon. And again, we really do want to hear your feedback and to hear what you learned from today and if you're thinking about implementing something similar. I also want to let everyone know our next webinar is October 27th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And during that webinar, we'll be hearing from Tyson Foods about their workplace education program. They've actually launched a new initiative called the Upward Academy, which provides things like classes on the English language, getting a GED, and obtaining citizenship for their employees. So again, thanks everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.